Peace begins when you stop giving the outside world permission to control your mind. One careless word can ruin your day. One rejection can make you question your worth. One difficult person can occupy your thoughts long after they have left the room. This does not mean you are weak. It means you have not yet learned to use the space between what happens and how you respond. From an early age, you were taught how to defend yourself, prove your point, win approval, avoid rejection, and respond when someone crossed you. Few people taught you how to sit beside an emotion without obeying it. Almost no one showed you how to recognize the quiet interval between what happens and what you do next. Buddhist wisdom points toward that interval because it is where freedom begins. This audiobook will introduce you to 7 powerful Buddhist teachings that can transform the way you face criticism, conflict, disappointment, and emotional pain. You will learn how to protect your energy, release what does not belong to you, remain calm under pressure, and respond without betraying yourself. If you apply these lessons sincerely, your life will begin to change from within. Other people may remain the same, but they will no longer control your peace. By the end of this journey, you will not feel less. You will feel everything without allowing any passing emotion to decide who you become. Chapter 1. Not everything deserves your reaction. Your energy is limited, even when your responsibilities seem endless. Attention has limits as well, and so does your capacity to regulate emotion. Every time you react to something that does not deserve your involvement, you spend a portion of those resources. The cost may look small in the moment. A driver cuts you off, and anger follows you for the next 20 minutes. Someone makes a careless comment during a meeting, so the conversation continues inside your head all afternoon. A message does not arrive when expected, and your mind begins creating explanations that leave you anxious and resentful. Plans change at the last minute, turning disappointment into a private argument with reality. None of these events needs to be denied. The driver behaved recklessly. That comment may have been unnecessary. Waiting can feel uncomfortable, and a failed plan can genuinely disappoint you. Still, the original event and the energy you continue giving it are 2 different things. One happens outside you, the other is sustained within you. Imagine waking with a full container of clean water. Every reaction pours some of it onto the ground. By noon, you may have little left for your work, your health, the people you love, or the future you are trying to build. The world did not always take that energy from you. Often, your unexamined reactions gave it away. Buddhist discernment begins with seeing that attention is an ethical choice. Whatever receives your attention also receives part of your life. This does not call for indifference. Instead, it asks you to understand the value of your mental resources. When peace matters to you, not every provocation can be treated as an emergency. The ego resists this lesson because it wants recognition. It needs to prove that you were right, that another person was unfair, or that your dignity cannot be questioned. Beneath that urgency often lies a simple fear. If you do not respond, perhaps the other person has won. Yet a reaction is not automatically a sign of power. Sometimes it proves only that another person knew which button to press. Before entering a conflict, ask what victory would actually mean. Would the final word improve your life? Could explaining yourself for the 5th time create understanding where there has been no willingness to listen? Is this a real problem, or has your pride been briefly injured? Such questions are not designed to shame you. They help separate what requires action from what merely demands attention because it is emotionally loud. A useful practice is to change the scale of time. Ask whether this will matter a year from now. If the answer remains uncertain, imagine 5 years passing. Many events that feel enormous in the present become almost invisible when placed against a larger life. That perspective does not make current feelings false. It simply prevents temporary discomfort from acquiring permanent authority. Another question goes deeper. Does this need to be solved, discussed, or released? Some provocations deserve no response. A stranger's rude remark, a hostile comment online, or an obvious attempt to draw you into conflict may disappear when you refuse to feed it. Other situations require conversation. Misunderstandings with someone you value should not always be buried in silence. A calm question can prevent a false story from hardening into resentment. Certain circumstances demand a boundary. Repeated humiliation, manipulation, intimidation, or disrespect is not something spiritual maturity requires you to tolerate. Wisdom lies in knowing which response belongs to which situation. Ignoring every problem is avoidance. Fighting every problem is exhaustion. Conscious selection stands between those extremes. Consider a coworker who interrupts you during a meeting. An immediate reaction might be sharp, public, and satisfying for a few seconds. Later, the tension could make collaboration harder. Silence without reflection might. A wiser response may be to finish the meeting, regulate your emotions, and speak privately. When I am interrupted repeatedly, I cannot contribute effectively. I need room to finish my point. No explosion was necessary, yet the behavior was not accepted. Calmness protected both your dignity and your clarity. The same principle works in close relationships. If someone forgets a small preference, the moment may deserve grace. When a pattern repeatedly violates trust, honest discussion becomes necessary. Discernment keeps forgiveness from turning into self-abandonment. It also prevents every disappointment from being interpreted as betrayal. During the next minor disturbance, notice the first urge to react. Do not condemn it. Observe what the ego wants: recognition, revenge, reassurance, control, or the relief of discharging tension. Once that need is visible, choice becomes possible. Perhaps action is required. Maybe a conversation should happen later, after the emotional heat has fallen. At times, the wisest response will be no response at all. Your peace is not so fragile that it needs to defend itself against every passing opinion. Neither is it so passive that it cannot establish a clear limit. Protecting your energy means investing it where your life can grow. Every unnecessary battle consumes time that will never return. Each argument rehearsed in your mind occupies space that could hold creativity, affection, rest, or purpose. No comment deserves automatic access to your attention. Not every inconvenience deserves anxiety, and not every misunderstanding needs an immediate defense. Choose what matters. Address what is real. Release what is temporary. Your life becomes calmer when you stop treating every stone in the road as a mountain you must conquer. Chapter 2. The gift you are not required to accept. An old Buddhist story tells of an angry man who approached the Buddha with the intention of disturbing him. Rage had already filled the man before he arrived. He shouted insults, questioned the Buddha's character, and used every painful word he could find. Each accusation was thrown like a stone. The Buddha listened without returning hostility. His face did not harden, and his voice did not rise. When the man finally became exhausted by his own anger, the Buddha asked a quiet question. If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong? Confused by the apparent change of subject, the man answered, "It still belongs to the person who offered it." The Buddha replied, "Then I do not accept your anger. It remains with you." The power of this story does not rest in pretending that words have no effect. Human beings are relational. Language can comfort, wound, encourage, deceive, and intimidate. You may feel pain when someone speaks to you with contempt. The body can react before wisdom has time to answer. Your face may become warm. The chest may tighten, and an old insecurity might awaken. Refusing the gift does not mean preventing the first sensation. It means deciding not to carry another person's anger as though it were your identity. A statement becomes heavier when the mind repeats it. Someone says, "You are never good enough," and the words last only 2 seconds in the room. Inside you, however, they may continue for years if they are joined to an existing wound. Soon the voice no longer sounds like the person who spoke. It sounds like your own. This is how an unwanted gift is accepted. You unwrap it, study it, give it a permanent place in your home, and eventually forget that it came from someone else. Buddhist awareness invites you to examine the package before making it yours. Ask whether the words describe a behavior that needs attention or merely reveal the speaker's state of mind. A stressed manager may express pressure through criticism. An insecure partner might use blame to avoid vulnerability. A stranger can project frustration onto anyone nearby. Understanding this does not excuse harmful behavior. It prevents another person's unregulated emotion from becoming your private burden. Emotional contagion is common because feelings move through relationships quickly. A supervisor arrives at work frustrated and speaks harshly to an employee. That employee goes home carrying tension and snaps at a family member. The family member withdraws, then treats someone else coldly the next day. One person's unobserved anger travels through several lives. You may not control where that chain begins, but you can decide whether it continues through you. Suppose a customer speaks disrespectfully while you are doing your job. Your nervous system may prepare for conflict. Instead of matching the person's aggression, take one breath and notice what has been handed to you. Their impatience belongs to them. Your responsibility is to respond to the situation, not absorb their emotional condition. A calm answer may solve the practical problem. If abuse continues, a firm boundary or assistance from another person may be necessary. Either way, you do not need to bring the stranger's anger home. Refusal is not passivity. If someone repeatedly insults you, not accepting the gift does not require standing there indefinitely. You can say, "I am willing to talk," when we can speak respectfully. Walking away may be wiser than remaining available for mistreatment. In another setting, you might report abusive conduct, end a relationship, or seek support. Compassion does not remove consequences. Inner peace and outer protection can exist together. 3 questions can help you decide what to do with painful words. First, does this criticism point to a real behavior you should examine? A defensive mind rejects everything, while a mature one can receive useful truth without collapsing. Second, does the statement mainly reveal the fear, resentment, or insecurity of the speaker? If so, understanding its source can stop you from taking it personally. Third, does the moment require correction, a boundary, or release? These choices are different. Correction means recognizing your part and changing it. A boundary protects your dignity when harmful behavior continues. Release allows a passing insult to leave without building a home inside you. Imagine that a close friend says you were unavailable during a difficult time. The comment hurts because you believe you have tried to be supportive. Rejecting every part of it would not be wisdom. Listen for the specific truth. Perhaps your friend needed something you did not understand. A sincere conversation can deepen the relationship. Now imagine someone says, "You ruin everything because you declined a demand." That is not useful feedback. It is a global attack designed to make you doubt your right to choose. You can refuse the accusation while remaining open to honest dialogue. The distinction is not always immediate, which is why a pause matters. Pain wants a quick verdict. Either they are completely right or completely wrong. Awareness allows a more precise response. The gift story also applies to praise. Approval can become another package you feel compelled to accept. When identity depends entirely on admiration, criticism becomes terrifying. The same mind that is lifted by every compliment will be crushed by every insult. Freedom grows when both praise and blame are received with perspective. Appreciation can be enjoyed without becoming proof of worth. Disapproval can be considered without becoming proof of failure. Other people's words may offer information, but they cannot carry final authority over who you are. Before sleep, review the emotional gifts you collected during the day. Notice any irritation that began with someone else. Feel where it remains in the body. Then say quietly, "This feeling passed through me, but it does not have to stay." If a lesson is present, keep the lesson. When a boundary is needed, prepare to establish it. Leave the poison behind. You can hear an insult without turning it into a name. Another person may offer anger, contempt, envy, or blame. Acceptance is not compulsory. Your mind is not a storage room for every emotion the world places at your door. Chapter 3. Your freedom lies between the stimulus and the response. Most reactions seem immediate because the steps between an event and an action happen quickly. Someone criticizes you, and an answer leaves your mouth before you have understood what you feel. A plan changes, so anxiety begins before the new situation has even been assessed. One fearful thought appears, and you believe it as though it were verified fact. The mind collapses an entire chain into a single instant. Event, bodily sensation, emotion, interpretation, urge, and action. Mindfulness slows the process enough for you to see its parts. Once the chain becomes visible, it is no longer destiny. Consider receiving a brief message that says, "We need to talk." The event itself is simple. A few words appear on a screen. Your body may tighten before any conscious thought occurs. Fear then rises. The mind creates an interpretation. Something is wrong. Someone is angry. A relationship may be ending, or your job could be at risk. That story generates an urge to demand an explanation immediately. Within seconds, you may send several anxious messages, yet none of the imagined conclusions has been confirmed. A sensation was mistaken for evidence, and an emotion became a command. The Buddhist practice of awareness does not ask you to eliminate the body's first response. It teaches you to know what is happening while it happens. Tightness is here. Fear is here. The mind is predicting danger. Such recognition creates distance without denial. You are not saying the fear is foolish. Instead, you are refusing to call it certainty. The pause required for freedom can be very small. One slow breath may be enough to interrupt an automatic pattern. A moment of silence before answering can protect a relationship. Setting down your phone for 10 minutes might save you from sending words that cannot be recalled. Small pauses matter because reactions gain force through speed. When movement stops, awareness has time to enter. Use 5 steps when emotional pressure rises. First, stop. Do not send, speak, decide, or leave in a dramatic way unless immediate safety requires action. Physical stillness helps the nervous system recognize that you are not under attack. Second, take one slow breath. Let the exhale last slightly longer than the inhale. This does not solve the situation, but it reduces the urgency that makes poor decisions feel necessary. Third, notice the body. Anger may appear as heat in the face, pressure in the jaw, or tension in the hands. Fear often tightens the chest or stomach. Shame can make you want to shrink, hide, or explain yourself too quickly. Bodily awareness brings you back from the story to the present. Fourth, name the emotion with simple language. anger is present, I feel rejected, or anxiety is rising, avoid turning the feeling into identity. I am angry can sound as though anger has become your whole being. Anger is here, recognizes it as a temporary condition. Fifth, ask, what is the wisest response available to me now? The wisest action is not always the softest. Sometimes it is a gentle question. At other times, clarity requires a firm refusal. Silence, delay, apology, departure, or direct conversation can each be wise under different conditions. The purpose of the pause is not to force one approved response. Its purpose is to return choice to you. Imagine discovering a message that feels disrespectful. An automatic reaction writes a sharp reply, adds old grievances, and attacks the other person's character. Relief may follow for a minute because emotional energy has been discharged. Later, the situation becomes larger than the original problem. With a pause, you can identify what actually hurt. Perhaps the wording seemed dismissive. A clear reply might say, I may be reading this incorrectly, but the message felt dismissive. Can we clarify what you meant? Such a response protects your dignity without creating unnecessary damage. If the disrespect is unmistakable and repeated, a stronger limit may be appropriate. I will discuss the issue, but I will not continue while being spoken to this way. In both cases, awareness chooses the language. Instinct and fear tend to react. Understanding and intention know how to respond. Instinct says, make the discomfort stop now. Fear insists, defend yourself before you are rejected. Awareness asks, what action will still make sense tomorrow? Intention remembers the person you want to be even when emotion is loud. This distinction matters because genuine feelings can recommend destructive behavior. Anger may honestly report that a value or boundary has been violated. It cannot automatically determine how the violation should be addressed. Fear can alert you to risk, yet it also produces false alarms. Sadness may tell you that something meaningful has been lost, but it should not decide that life will never become meaningful again. Feelings carry messages. They are not unquestionable orders. Training the pause works best before a major crisis. Practice in ordinary moments. Wait for one breath before answering a routine question. Notice impatience while standing in line without reaching for immediate distraction. When a notification appears, observe the impulse to check it before moving your hand. These minor exercises strengthen the same capacity you need during conflict. A musician practices scales before performing on stage. In the same way, mindfulness prepares your nervous system before the difficult conversation arrives. Occasionally, you will remember the pause only after reacting. Do not use awareness as another weapon against yourself. Review what happened with honesty. Where did the body first signal distress? Which interpretation created the greatest pressure? At what point could a pause have entered? Apologize if your behavior caused harm. Then learn from the sequence. Shame says, I reacted badly, so I am incapable of change. Responsibility says, I see the pattern more clearly now, and next time I may recognize it sooner. Progress often begins after the event and gradually moves closer to the beginning. At first, awareness comes hours later. With practice, it arrives after 10 minutes, then during the reaction, and eventually before action. Your greatest freedom is not the ability to control other people's words, moods, or choices. Such control is impossible. Real freedom is the growing ability to remain present when your own automatic patterns demand obedience. Between the stimulus and your response, there is a door. A breath opens it. On the other side stands the person you are capable of becoming. Chapter 4. What others think of you is their reality, not the whole of yours. Every person looks at you through a private filter. That filter contains childhood experiences, cultural expectations, personal values, unhealed wounds, fears, hopes, and assumptions. Nobody encounters you with a perfectly neutral mind. 10 people can watch you enter the same room and form 10 different opinions. One sees confidence. Another interprets the same posture as arrogance. Someone admires your quietness, while a different observer calls it insecurity. You have not changed from one gaze to the next. The minds doing the observing have changed. This is why an opinion cannot be treated as a complete description of who you are. It is a meeting between your behavior and another person's interpretation. Understanding this can free you from the impossible task of controlling every perception. No amount of careful behavior will produce universal approval because people do not agree on what deserves approval. If you speak directly, some will value your honesty and others will find you difficult. Should you remain quiet, one person may call you peaceful while another assumes you lack courage. Generosity can be admired as kindness or suspected as weakness. Ambition looks inspiring to some and threatening to others. Trying to satisfy every interpretation requires becoming a different person in every room until you no longer know which version is yours. Buddhist insight asks you to see perception as conditioned. The mind rarely experiences pure reality. It selects, labels, compares, and interprets according to previous conditioning. This principle applies to you as much as it applies to your critics. Your first reading of someone else may also be incomplete. Humility is therefore essential. Recognizing filters should not become a convenient excuse to dismiss every uncomfortable truth. Some criticism exposes a blind spot. A person who cares about you may notice a habit you have normalized. Mature self-respect can listen without surrendering its entire identity. The task is to distinguish constructive feedback from judgment designed to diminish or control you. Useful criticism usually names a specific behavior. You interrupted me several times, and I felt unheard gives you something concrete to examine. Destructive judgment attacks the whole person. You are selfish and impossible. Healthy feedback leaves room for context, conversation, and change. Manipulative criticism uses shame, exaggeration, or fear to establish power. Care is often visible in tone and intention. Someone speaking from concern may still be clumsy, but they are willing to listen to your perspective. A person committed to judgment has already reached a verdict. 3 questions can guide you. First, does this individual understand you and the circumstances well enough to offer an informed view? Advice from a trusted friend who has witnessed the situation deserves different weight from a stranger reacting to one fragment. Second, are they describing a particular action or condemning your entire character? Behaviors can be examined and changed. Global labels rarely support growth. Third, does the message come from care or from a desire to shame, dominate, provoke, or unload frustration? You may not always know the answer immediately. Time and patterns reveal what one conversation cannot. Suppose a supervisor tells you that your presentation lacked clarity and points to 2 sections where the argument was difficult to follow. The feedback may sting, especially after hard work, but it contains usable information. You can improve the structure without deciding you are unintelligent. Now imagine the same supervisor says, "You are simply not leadership material," offers no evidence, and repeatedly undermines you in public. That is not a clear description of behavior. It may reflect bias, insecurity, or a harmful management style. The statement can be considered without being accepted as a final truth. In a family, The difference may be more emotionally charged. A relative says, "You have changed," after you begin setting boundaries. Perhaps you have changed. Growth often looks like rejection to people who benefited from your lack of limits. Their discomfort does not automatically prove your boundary is wrong. Still, examine your delivery. Were you clear and respectful, or did accumulated resentment turn the boundary into punishment? Keep the useful part and release the poison. This balanced approach protects you from two opposite errors. The first is believing every opinion, which produces chronic self-doubt. The second is rejecting every opinion, which prevents growth. Wisdom receives feedback like a careful guest. It looks at what has been offered, keeps what nourishes, and leaves what causes harm. Your worth cannot be built entirely on changing public opinion. Praise is pleasant but unstable. Criticism can be painful, yet temporary. If identity rises with every compliment and falls with every objection, your inner life remains in the hands of a crowd that never speaks with one voice. A steadier foundation comes from knowing your values, observing your conduct, accepting responsibility, and correcting yourself without self-hatred. Ask whether you acted with honesty, compassion, courage, and respect. When the answer is no, repair what you can. If the answer is yes, another person's displeasure may simply be the cost of living in alignment. This does not mean becoming rigid. Values should make you more truthful, not more defensive. Practice separating information from identity. When criticism arrives, write down the exact behavior being described. Remove insults, assumptions, and global labels. What remains? If there is a real point, decide what action could address it. When nothing concrete remains, you may be carrying another person's projection. Let that realization soften the wound. Their perception belongs to their conditioned mind. Your interpretation also deserves examination. Neither side possesses the whole truth automatically. Freedom does not require everyone to understand you. It asks you to understand yourself well enough that misunderstanding does not erase you. Other people's opinions may offer mirrors, but some mirrors are distorted. Look carefully before using any reflection to define your face. Receive insight where it exists. Correct what genuinely needs correction. Release judgments that were never designed to help you grow. An opinion is information for consideration, not a sentence handed down on your identity. Chapter 5. Upekkha, the calm that does not depend on the outside world. The Buddhist term upekkha is commonly translated as equanimity. Its meaning reaches beyond appearing calm. Equanimity is a balanced mind that can remain present with pleasure and pain, praise and blame, gain and loss, success and disappointment. Such balance is not coldness. It does not ask you to stop caring, suppress tears, or become distant from life. A heart with equanimity can love deeply because it does not need to possess everything it loves. It can grieve honestly without believing grief will last forever. Joy is welcomed without the desperate demand that it never change. Pain is acknowledged without being given permanent ownership of the future. Picture a tree standing in a storm. Wind shakes its branches. Rain strikes the trunk, and leaves are torn away. Nothing about the tree is untouched, yet it remains standing because its roots reach deeper than the weather. Equanimity does not prevent the wind. It develops roots. Your storms may come as rejection, separation, failure, illness, a painful remark, or a future that refuses to follow your plans. No spiritual practice can promise that these conditions will disappear. What practice can change is the depth from which you meet them. Shallow roots depend on favorable weather. Deep roots allow movement without destruction. Each time you observe, instead of reacting, another root grows. Every conscious breath taken before speaking strengthens the ground beneath you. Choosing peace over the need to win adds depth. Refusing to let an external event destroy your inner direction makes the root system more stable. These choices may feel insignificant, especially when no one sees them. Over time, they become character. Equanimity is often misunderstood because people confuse stability with numbness. Numbness disconnects you from experience. Balance lets you feel the experience without drowning in it. A numb person says, "Nothing matters." An equanimous person says, "This matters, and I can remain present without losing myself." Indifference turns away from suffering. Equanimity looks directly at suffering while preserving enough clarity to respond wisely. Emotional suppression tightens the body and hides pain beneath acceptable behavior. Awareness allows pain to move, speak, and change. Consider praise. When someone admires you, pleasure naturally arises. Equanimity does not forbid enjoyment. It reminds you that praise is conditioned and temporary. The person's opinion can change, circumstances may shift, and another audience may respond differently. If praise becomes the foundation of worth, you will begin performing for its return. Criticism then feels like a threat to survival. A balanced mind appreciates recognition without building a home inside it. The same wisdom applies to blame. Listen carefully, learn where needed, and remember that no judgment remains fixed forever. Impermanence is central to this practice. Every emotion arises because conditions support it. As conditions change, the emotion changes. Anger may begin as heat, become a story, reach a peak, and then weaken. Anxiety comes in waves. Sadness can feel endless. Yet even grief contains moments when attention shifts and the body rests. The mind creates extra suffering when it declares a temporary state permanent. "I will always feel this way" is rarely an observation. It is fear trying to predict the future. You do not have to defeat an emotion. Fighting it can provide additional energy. Instead, notice how it behaves. Where does it begin in the body? Does it pulse, tighten, move, fade, or return? Which thoughts nourish it? What happens when those thoughts are not repeated? An emotion without a continuing story often changes faster than expected. This does not mean severe pain disappears with one mindful breath. Deep wounds may require time, support, therapy, community, and practical change. Impermanence offers hope without demanding instant healing. It says that no state remains exactly the same, including this one. A short daily practice can cultivate equanimity. Sit comfortably and feel the breath. When a pleasant sensation appears, notice the desire to keep it. Should discomfort arise, observe the wish to escape. Neither response needs criticism. Simply recognize, holding is here, or resistance is here. Return to breathing without forcing the experience away. This small exercise reveals a pattern repeated throughout life. The mind clings to what feels good and fights what feels bad. Both movements disturb balance. Awareness teaches you to remain without immediately grasping or rejecting. Daily life provides stronger training. A project receives praise after months of effort. Enjoy the moment, thank those who supported you, and remember that your worth existed before the applause. Another project fails. Feel the disappointment, study what happened, and refuse to turn one result into a definition of your future. Someone you love becomes distant. Let uncertainty be painful without filling every silence with catastrophic stories. Ask clear questions, respect reality, and stay connected to your own dignity. Equanimity does not arrive once and remain forever. Some days you will maintain perspective with surprising ease. On another day, a small inconvenience may pull you far from your center. This inconsistency is not hypocrisy. Practice develops within changing conditions. Sleep, health, stress, memory, and environment all influence your capacity. The important measure is not how often life disturbs you. Notice how you return. Perhaps you once remained angry for a week and now recover in a day. Maybe an anxious spiral lasted all night before, but now you recognize it within an hour. Such progress can seem modest, yet it represents a profound change in freedom. When you react badly, the return may include responsibility. Equanimity is not an excuse to avoid consequences. Admit what happened, apologize without defending the harm, and make a different plan. Shame tries to turn a mistake into identity. Balance sees the mistake clearly while leaving room for growth. The tree does not condemn itself for losing leaves in a storm. It continues drawing nourishment through its roots. Your roots deepen whenever you come back after being pulled away. Return to the body. Come back to the breath. Reconnect with your values. Begin again without drama. Peace is not proven by never moving. A rigid tree can break. Real stability allows movement while maintaining connection to the ground. You may cry, tremble, become angry, or need time. None of these responses cancels your practice. Upekkha is the inner knowledge that experience can move through you without becoming the whole of you. Storms will continue to arrive, but weather is not the same as the sky. Feel what is here. Care about what matters. Release the demand that life remain unchanged. Each return sends your roots deeper until outer conditions no longer decide whether you can stand. Chapter 6. Reacting is easy. Responding calmly is true strength. Anyone can explode when anger becomes intense. Returning an insult requires no special wisdom. A sharp voice can produce sharper words, and the nervous system knows how to fight long before the reflective mind understands the conflict. Reaction is easy because it promises immediate release. Tension rises, you discharge it, and for a moment you may feel powerful. The consequences arrive later. Words cannot be pulled back. Trust becomes weaker. A practical problem turns into a personal war. You may win the exchange and lose the relationship, your credibility, or respect for your own behavior. True strength appears when everything inside you wants to attack, yet you remain capable of choice. This does not mean becoming silent forever. The silence of strength is a conscious pause, not surrender. It creates enough room for anger to become clear instead of destructive. What exactly was crossed? Which part of the moment belongs to the present, and which part awakened an older wound? What result do you actually want? Without a pause, the ego chooses its familiar goals. Have the final word. Prove you are right. Make the other person hurt as much as you hurt. Or force an apology before understanding is possible. Those goals feel urgent because pride interprets conflict as a contest. Buddhist wisdom offers a different image of victory. The greatest warrior is not the person who defeats countless enemies, but the one who learns to master the self. Mastery here does not mean domination through repression. It means understanding your inner forces well enough that they cannot use your body and voice without consent. Anger can provide energy for a boundary. Courage can borrow its fire. Compassion and wisdom must decide where that energy goes. When another person can reliably make you lose control, they hold a key to your inner state. Their tone determines your tone. Their aggression chooses your language. One provocation turns you into a version of yourself you later regret. The other person may be wrong, yet your reaction still belongs to you. Accepting this responsibility restores power. Blame says, "They made me behave that way." Ownership says, Their behavior affected me deeply, but I am responsible for what I did next. The second statement is harder and far more liberating. No one can develop your self-command for you. Calmness does not require weakness. A steady voice can carry a strong boundary more effectively than a scream. "I will not continue this conversation while I am being insulted" is not passive. It names the condition, protects dignity, and makes the consequence clear. Leaving the room may show greater control than remaining to trade wounds. Refusing an unreasonable request can preserve peace better than agreeing while resentment grows. Reducing contact with someone who repeatedly harms you may be necessary even after forgiveness. Inner compassion does not create an obligation to offer unlimited access. Imagine a family member who uses guilt whenever you make an independent choice. In the past, you may have argued for hours, offered explanations, and tried to earn permission for your own life. Each discussion ended with greater exhaustion. A calm response changes the structure. "I understand that you disagree. My decision remains the same, and I am not going to debate it." The boundary contains no attack. It also contains no invitation to further control. If the person continues, end the conversation. Peace is preserved through clarity, not endless persuasion. In the workplace, a colleague may take credit for your contribution. Pretending not to care would not be spiritual maturity. An explosive accusation might damage your position. Strength gathers evidence, describes the facts, and raises the issue through an appropriate channel. You can protect your work without turning the colleague into an enemy inside your mind. The goal is resolution and integrity, not revenge. Serious abuse and injustice require even greater clarity. Buddhist teachings should never be used to convince you to remain in danger. If someone threatens your safety, seek help. Leave where possible, contact trusted people or professional services, and use the protections available to you. Peace is not obedience to harm. Non-hatred does not forbid decisive action. You can oppose abusive behavior without allowing hatred to consume the rest of your life. At times, the calmest response will disappoint people who are accustomed to your compliance. They may accuse you of changing, becoming distant, or acting selfishly. Examine your conduct honestly. Then remember that another person's discomfort does not automatically make your boundary unkind. A limit is not punishment when its purpose is protection and clarity. Punishment tries to make someone suffer. A boundary explains what you will do to care for your well-being. Language matters. You always ruin everything. Attacks, identity. "I am leaving this conversation because the shouting has continued." Describes behavior and consequence. Practice speaking from observation rather than accusation. Say what happened, how it affects the situation, and what you will do next. Avoid lengthy defenses. Excessive explanation often signals that you are still asking the other person to authorize your limit. Respectful clarity does not require unanimous agreement. Another part of strength is knowing when to apologize. Calmness can become pride if you use it to appear morally superior. Speaking softly while dismissing someone's pain is not equanimity. If you caused harm, do not hide behind good intentions. Listen, acknowledge the impact, and make repair. Self-mastery includes the courage to let go of being right. Sometimes the ego fights, not because a boundary was crossed, but because its self-image was challenged. Ask whether your response protects a value or merely protects pride. The difference may be uncomfortable, yet recognizing it prevents unnecessary conflict. Before a difficult conversation, choose an intention. Perhaps you want clarity, mutual understanding, protection, or an honest ending. Let that intention guide your words when emotion rises. Speak more slowly than your anger prefers. Keep sentences simple. Take a break if the body becomes overwhelmed. A pause is not abandonment when you explain that you will return. I want to discuss this, but I cannot do it well while I am this activated. I need 30 minutes, and then I will come back. Follow through so that the pause builds trust rather than avoidance. The reverse way of thinking about victory changes everything. Winning does not mean silencing the other person. It means refusing to let conflict separate you from your values. Success may look like leaving without the final word. It can involve hearing a painful truth without collapsing. Perhaps it means saying no without hatred, apologizing without humiliation, or ending a harmful connection without dedicating your future to resentment. Reaction hands authority to the provocation. A conscious response keeps that authority within you. Anyone can be calm when nothing is challenged. Strength reveals itself when the storm arrives, and you can still decide which direction to walk. Chapter 7. When nothing governs your peace, life begins to flow. Many people postpone peace without realizing it. When this person changes, I will relax. Once the problem is solved, I can breathe. After the plan succeeds, I will finally feel secure. Each promise places inner stability behind an external condition. The condition is reached, but another uncertainty appears. One relationship improves while work becomes difficult. A financial goal is achieved, and health becomes a concern. Approval arrives from one person as criticism comes from another. The world does not become permanently arranged in your favor. If peace must wait until nothing is wrong, it will always remain one event away. Buddhist wisdom begins with the recognition that conditioned life is unstable. People change. Bodies age. Plans meet circumstances they could not predict. Pleasure passes. Difficulty passes. And certainty repeatedly gives way to the unknown. This truth is not meant to make you pessimistic. It releases you from an impossible negotiation with reality. You no longer need to demand permanent weather before learning how to stand. Peace becomes a way of meeting life, not a reward waiting at the end of a perfect life. A calmer mind thinks more clearly because emotional noise no longer occupies every part of attention. Problems that once looked like final judgments become situations with causes, limits, and possible responses. Creativity returns when fear stops insisting there is only one outcome. Communication improves because you can listen without preparing an immediate defense. Decisions become steadier when they are based on values and evidence rather than the strongest feeling of the hour. This does not guarantee that every choice will succeed. It means your choices are less likely to be distorted by panic, pride, or revenge. Imagine losing an opportunity you expected to receive. A disturbed mind immediately turns the result into a verdict. I have failed. Nothing works for me. My future is closing. From that state, you may withdraw, lash out, or abandon meaningful work. Inner steadiness does not erase disappointment. It separates the event from the identity. This opportunity ended. I am hurt. What can it teach me? And what remains possible? Clarity reveals information hidden by emotional noise. Perhaps preparation needs improvement. Maybe the opportunity was poorly matched. Another path may now require attention. Peace does not magically produce success. It helps you meet reality in a condition capable of learning. Relationships change in the same way. When fear controls your peace, another person's silence becomes unbearable. You may chase, accuse, test, or withdraw before knowing what is happening. A grounded mind can tolerate enough uncertainty to ask directly. If the relationship is healthy, clearer communication becomes possible. Should the other person be unwilling or harmful, stability helps you see that fact without bargaining away your dignity. Nothing outside has been forced to improve. Your relationship with what happens has changed. This distinction protects the teaching from becoming a promise of attraction or magical thinking. Inner peace does not guarantee that ideal people and favorable events will appear. Calmness cannot prevent illness, rejection, economic difficulty, or loss. Its power is practical. A clear mind notices options, chooses companions more carefully, recognizes patterns earlier, and responds to challenges with greater skill. Those actions may improve outer conditions, but the improvement comes through perception and conduct, not through the universe rewarding a particular mood. The 7 teachings now form one path. First, not everything deserves a reaction. Your limited energy should serve what matters, rather than every temporary disturbance. Second, you are not required to accept the gift of another person's anger. Listen for truth, establish limits where necessary, and refuse to turn poison into identity. Third, freedom lives in the pause between stimulus and response. A breath can interrupt a pattern that once seemed inevitable. Fourth, other people's opinions reflect their filters and cannot contain the whole truth about you. Receive useful feedback without handing over your worth. Fifth, equanimity is built through repeated returns. Roots deepen each time you observe change without being uprooted by it. Sixth, calm response is greater strength than impulsive reaction. A boundary spoken clearly can protect you more effectively than an explosion. Seventh, peace must begin within, because outer life will never remain perfectly arranged. None of these lessons stands alone. Discernment tells you which conflicts matter. The gift teaching prevents other people's emotions from entering unchecked. The pause makes conscious action possible. Understanding perception protects identity. Equanimity stabilizes the mind through change. Self-mastery guides boundaries and repair. Inner peace then becomes the ground from which daily life can be lived. Practice them in the next ordinary disturbance. Do not wait for a dramatic crisis or an ideal morning. When someone interrupts you, notice the urge to react. If a message is delayed, observe the story forming around the silence. During criticism, separate concrete information from judgment. When anger rises, feel it in the body before giving it language. Should a boundary be needed, state it without contempt. If you fail and react impulsively, return through responsibility rather than shame. Each moment is small, but a life is made from such moments. Acting as if nothing bothers you does not mean becoming unreachable. It means remaining connected to yourself while being touched by life. You can care without clinging, grieve without surrendering your future, and confront harm without becoming consumed by hatred. Pain may knock at the door, but it does not automatically receive ownership of the house. What once ruined an entire day may eventually disturb you for an hour, then a few minutes. Certain wounds will still require patience, and some losses will change you permanently. Peace is not measured by how little you feel. It is revealed by how wisely you carry what you feel. When nothing governs your peace from the outside, life begins to flow, because your energy is no longer trapped in constant resistance. Attention returns to what can be created, repaired, loved, and understood. The world may remain uncertain, yet you are no longer waiting for certainty before you begin living. Conclusion. What I learned when I stopped giving my peace away. I once believed peace would begin when people stopped disappointing me. If they understood my intentions, respected my effort, answered with kindness, and behaved as I hoped, then I imagined I could finally rest. That belief kept my inner life dependent on conditions I could never control. One careless sentence could remain with me for days. Even after the conversation ended, I continued arguing in my mind, rewriting my answer, and trying to win a moment that no longer existed. While moving through these 7 teachings, I recognized that my pain did not come only from what another person had done. Part of it came from the way I held the event, resisted it, repeated it, and gave it somewhere permanent to live. This realization did not blame me for being hurt. It returned to me the part of healing that was still within my reach. Emotional self-mastery, I learned, is not the ability to feel nothing. It is the courage to admit what I feel without allowing the most wounded part of me to choose every action. Anger may show me that a limit has been crossed. Sadness can reveal what mattered. Fear sometimes points toward a real risk. Yet none of these emotions has to become my ruler. The practical problem this book helped me face was simple and deeply personal. I had been giving an entire day to a moment that deserved only a few minutes of honest attention. Once I saw that pattern, peace stopped looking like passivity. It became a form of responsibility. I could listen, choose, speak, leave, forgive, or establish a boundary without surrendering my center. The reverse truth now feels clearer to me. I do not need to wait for the world to treat me gently before I become peaceful. Inner peace is what helps me meet a world that will not always be gentle. I will still lose my balance. Certain words may reach an old wound, and some disappointments will need time. My commitment is no longer to remain untouched. It is to return without abandoning myself. That is also what I hope you carry from this book. Do not demand a promise that you will never become angry again. Take one smaller and more powerful practice with you. Before your next reaction, give yourself one breath. Inside that breath, remember that the event is real, the emotion is real, and your freedom is real as well. I do not want you to finish this book feeling nothing. I want you to feel everything without allowing a passing emotion to decide who you are going to be.